Let's break down this section and write it in a more narrative and emotional way, suitable for a premium first-person YouTube storytelling narration. I'll never forget the day my daughter showed me pictures of herself smiling alongside Ryan's family after everything they'd done to their son. My heart sank as I realized she was still taking our grandchild to visit the people who disowned her ex-partner. The smile on her face made it all worse, a cruel contrast to the hurt and pain she knew I felt. As I sat there, staring at those pictures, my mind flashed back to the countless conversations we'd had about Ryan's family. I remembered how they'd pushed for marriage, always hinting that our daughter was living in sin. But it wasn't just about societal expectations. It was about their own deep-seated prejudices. Their reaction to Ryan's coming out had been nothing short of devastating. Disowning him like that? It was a betrayal not just to their son, but also to the values we'd instilled in our daughter from day one. And yet, here she was, smiling alongside them as if everything was okay. It broke my heart into a million pieces. The thought of our grandchild being around people who harbored such hatred was almost too much to bear. I couldn't help but wonder what they were saying to him, what kind of messages he was picking up from his grandparents and aunts. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. How could she be so casual around them? I asked her what this was all about, trying to keep my tone neutral despite the turmoil brewing inside me. She told me they'd been taking the kid to visit for a few months now, and that Ryan didn't know anything about it. That's when the real conversation began. "Emma, how can you do this?" I asked, my voice shaking with emotion. "Don't you see what's happening here? They disowned their own son because of who he is. And now you're taking our grandchild to visit them?" She looked at me with a mixture of defensiveness and hurt, but also a hint of guilt. It was as if she knew I wasn't attacking her directly, but rather the choices she'd made. We argued about it for what felt like hours, tears streaming down our faces as we both struggled to understand each other. It wasn't just about custody or visitation schedules, it was about the values we held dear as a family. And in that moment, I knew I had to take a stand. I couldn't just sit back and watch my daughter make choices that would hurt her son and our family's reputation for years to come. "I'm sorry, Emma," I said finally, after what felt like an eternity of arguing. "But I have to tell you the truth. I'm disgusted by what you're doing. We can't just ignore how Ryan's family has treated him." She looked at me with a mixture of shock and anger, but also a glimmer of understanding. For the first time in hours, I saw a spark of recognition in her eyes. That maybe, just maybe, she'd been wrong to do what she did. That was when things started to change. Ryan reached out to me later that day, thanking me for being honest with him about Emma's actions. He said he couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. As a result, he decided to take a firmer stance on custody, making sure the child's visits were supervised from now on. It wasn't easy, and I knew our relationship would suffer as a result of this decision. But I also knew that I'd done what I had to do, for Emma's sake, for Ryan's sake, and for the sake of our family's values. As I look back on that moment, I realize how much I underestimated my daughter's resilience. She may not have agreed with me then, but deep down, I know she understood where I was coming from. And in the end, it's about more than just custody or money. It's about the kind of family we are and the values we hold dear. We'll get through this together, as a family, even if it means navigating uncharted territory. But for now, it feels like we're standing at a crossroads, wondering which path to take next. This revised section maintains a natural flow and emotional depth while avoiding direct summaries or exposition-heavy text. The language is more descriptive and evocative, allowing the listener to fully immerse themselves in the story. I'll never forget the day my daughter showed me pictures of herself smiling alongside Ryan's family after everything they'd done to their son. My heart sank as I realized she was still taking our grandchild to visit the people who disowned her ex-partner. Growing up, I always knew that being a mother would be a challenge, but nothing could have prepared me for the day my daughter told me she was pregnant at 18. Emma and Ryan had been high school sweethearts, and we'd encouraged their relationship from the start. We were young ourselves when we got married, but life had other plans, and we ended up raising Emma on our own. As grandparents, my husband and I did our best to support Emma and Ryan as they built their lives together. We never pressured them into marriage, although Ryan's family often would say things like, "Those two need to stop living in sin." But for us, it was more about supporting their decisions and being there for the milestones. Emma and Ryan had a beautiful daughter of their own, and we were overjoyed to become grandparents. We'd spend hours babysitting our grandchild, watching her grow and learn new things every day. But as the years went by, Emma and Ryan's relationship began to fray. They never got married, but they did try to make it work for a long time. I remember the day the news broke that Ryan had cheated on Emma. It was like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And then, just as we were trying to process everything, Ryan revealed his true identity. He's gay. The breakup was messy, and the truth about his gay identity added a whole new level of complexity to their situation. Ryan's family, who'd always been super strict and conservative, took it hard when they found out. They disowned him outright, can you imagine? I remember hearing Ryan's mother call him a faggot over the phone. It was like a slap in the face for both Emma and Ryan. His family is really shitty people. The custody battle that followed was intense. Emma and Ryan were awarded 50-50 shared custody, but it was clear that tensions ran high whenever they interacted. I've always tried to stay neutral, supporting both Emma and Ryan as parents, while also being there for our grandchild. It's been a year since the split, and I thought we'd found some semblance of peace. But when Emma showed me those pictures, something inside me snapped. How could she be so casual around people who'd hurt their son like that? It felt like a betrayal, not just to Ryan, but also to our values as a family. I confronted Emma about her actions, and the argument that followed left us both in tears. I couldn't understand why she wouldn't see things from my perspective, or more importantly, from Ryan's. She defended taking our grandchild to visit them, saying it was for the child's sake, but I knew better. As we stood there in her living room, surrounded by all the memories of their family, I couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness and frustration. How could she be so blind to the hurt they'd caused? It broke my heart that she couldn't see how painful it was for Ryan and for our family values. I took a stand, telling her I was disgusted by what she was doing. We argued about custody arrangements, but deep down, I knew I'd made the right decision, for Emma's sake as much as Ryan's. Here is a rewritten section of the narration, focusing on the tension and emotional escalation. The pictures. I'll never forget the day Emma showed me those pictures. We were at my house catching up over coffee when she pulled out her phone to show me some recent photos. At first, I thought nothing of it. Just a typical weekend with our grandchild, right? But as I scrolled through the images, something didn't feel right. That's when I saw them. Ryan's family, his mom, his siblings. They were all there, smiling alongside Emma and our little one. My heart sank as I realized she was still taking our grandchild to visit the people who disowned their son like that. I remember feeling a wave of nausea wash over me. It was like a punch to the gut. "How could you do this?" I asked her, trying to keep my tone even. But inside, I was seething. How could she be so casual around people who'd hurt their son like that? It felt like a betrayal, not just to Ryan, but also to our values as a family. We'd always taught Emma and Ryan to stand up for what they believed in, to treat others with kindness and respect. And here we were, allowing them to visit the very people who'd rejected their own child. Emma looked taken aback by my reaction. "What's wrong?" she asked, but I could see the defensiveness creeping into her voice. "It's just, they're really mean to Ryan," I said, trying to explain. But Emma was quick to jump in. "They're not that bad, they love the baby." She seemed oblivious to the hurt and anger that had been simmering beneath the surface for months. I tried to reason with her, but it only ended in tears. We both started crying, arguing back and forth about custody arrangements and family values. I felt like I was hitting a brick wall, No matter how hard I pushed, Emma just couldn't see things from my perspective. And that's when it hit me. She was still holding on to a part of her old life with Ryan. It broke my heart that she couldn't let go. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I knew I had to take a stand, not just for Ryan, but also for our family's values and integrity. I told Emma exactly what I thought. I'm disgusted by what you're doing. You need to stop taking the baby to see them. The argument continued to escalate from there, with both of us digging in our heels. Looking back, I realized that confrontation was a turning point for all of us. For Ryan, it marked a shift towards being more assertive about his needs and boundaries, particularly when it came to custody arrangements. And for Emma, well, let's just say she wasn't happy with me or her ex-boyfriend after that. Script. That's when I realized Emma was still holding on to a part of her old life with Ryan. It broke my heart that she couldn't see how hurtful it was to him and to our family values. I remember the look on her face, like a mix of shock and defensiveness all at once. Her voice rose as she explained that she was doing it for the sake of their child, but I knew better. I've been a mother long enough to recognize when someone is trying to justify their actions rather than confronting the hurt they're causing. I don't understand why you're so upset, Mom, Emma said, her eyes flashing with anger and hurt. They love our baby just as much as we do. Love? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Their love is conditional, Emma. They only accept the child because they can use him to manipulate Ryan into giving them access to their grandchild. It's not genuine affection. It's a ploy to get what they want. Emma's face fell, and for a moment I saw a glimmer of understanding in her eyes. But then she looked away, and her voice dropped to a whisper. You don't know everything, Mom. Maybe they really do love the baby. I sighed inwardly, knowing that I was pushing Emma further into this corner. But someone had to tell her the truth, even if it hurt. We've talked about this before, Emma, I said gently, trying to reason with her. Your father and I have always taught you to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. And this is one of those times. But Emma just shook her head, her eyes flashing with tears. You're being unfair, Mom. You're taking sides again. That was the moment I realized that our confrontation had reached its breaking point. The tension between us was palpable, and I could feel the weight of our argument bearing down on me. I'm not taking sides, Emma, I said firmly, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I'm standing up for what's right. For you, for Ryan, and for our family's values. Emma looked at me then, her eyes blazing with a mix of anger and hurt. And in that moment, I knew we were both at a crossroads, one where we could either choose to continue down this path of conflict or take a step back and try to heal the wounds between us. But as I stood there, watching my daughter struggle with her emotions, I knew that I couldn't let her go on pretending everything was fine. Not when it wasn't. The fallout. I remember sitting in my living room, sipping coffee and staring at Emma's photos on my phone. She'd sent me pictures of herself smiling alongside Ryan's family, including his mother and 2 siblings. My heart sank as I realized she was still taking our grandchild to visit the people who disowned her ex-partner. I felt a mix of emotions, shock, disappointment, and concern. As I sat there trying to process what I was seeing, my mind started racing with questions. How could Emma be so casual around people who'd hurt Ryan like that? Didn't she see how much pain they'd caused him? And why was she exposing our grandchild to this toxicity? I pushed aside my initial reaction and tried to approach the situation with empathy. Maybe Emma thought she was doing what was best for the child. Or maybe she felt a sense of loyalty towards Ryan's family despite everything that had happened. But as I looked at those photos again, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. I decided to confront Emma about her actions when she came over later that day. We'd been friends with Ryan for so long, and it was clear that his family still had a hold on him. Or rather, they thought they did. But now that he'd come out as gay, they'd disowned him. And I couldn't help but wonder if Emma's behavior was influenced by their toxic dynamics. When Emma arrived at my place, she seemed bubbly and chatty about her weekend trip with Ryan's family. But the moment I brought up those photos, our conversation took a turn for the worse. She got defensive, explaining that she was just doing what was best for our grandchild, and that it wasn't my business to question her decisions. I tried to reason with her, but Emma wouldn't budge. It was like she was stuck in this old dynamic, where Ryan's family held power over her emotions. I felt frustrated and helpless as I watched her downplay the hurt they'd caused Ryan and our family. As we argued, I couldn't help but think about how far we'd come since Emma and Ryan's breakup. It had been a tough time for both of them, but we'd all thought we were on the road to healing and rebuilding. Now it seemed like we'd taken 2 steps back into a mess of hurt feelings, misunderstandings, and unspoken resentment. In that moment, I realized that our family was in trouble, not just because of custody disputes or financial stressors, but because we weren't being honest with each other about the pain we were causing. We needed to confront these issues head-on, even if it meant having difficult conversations and confronting our own biases. As Emma stormed out of my place, I couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. Would Ryan cut ties with her completely? Would our grandchild suffer in the middle of this family drama? And how could we possibly navigate this complex web of emotions and relationships? I felt a lump form in my throat as I looked at those photos on my phone again. It was clear that Emma had no intention of giving up her relationship with Ryan's family, even if it meant sacrificing our values and hurting the person who'd come out as gay. And now, with this new twist, our family dynamics would never be the same. As a mother, I couldn't help but feel a sense of responsibility for all this, for not being more proactive in addressing these issues earlier on. But I also knew that sometimes you can only do so much to protect your child from hurt. The rest was up to Emma herself, and whether she'd choose to see things from our perspective. In the days that followed, Ryan reached out to me, thanking me for being honest with him about Emma's actions. He told me that he couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when it wasn't, and that he needed to take a firmer stance on custody to protect himself and their child. It broke my heart to see our family torn apart like this, but I knew that sometimes you have to be the one to stand up for what's right, even if it means hurting someone in the process. As a mother, it was my duty to guide Emma towards healing and growth, and to help her understand why we couldn't condone behavior that hurt Ryan so deeply. I took a deep breath as I looked at those photos again, this time feeling a sense of resolve. We'd get through this together, as a family, but it wouldn't be easy. The aftermath, reflections on broken trust. It's been a while since that argument with Emma. I've had time to process my emotions, to think about the choices I made and the reasons behind them. As a mother, it's natural to question yourself after a difficult conversation like that one. But the more I reflect on our situation, the clearer it becomes. This isn't just about custody or money. It's about the kind of family we are and the values we hold dear. I still remember the feeling in my gut when Emma showed me those pictures with Ryan's family. It was a mix of emotions, shock, disappointment, and even a hint of sadness. I knew I had to speak up, to tell her how I felt about their actions towards Ryan. But it wasn't easy. It never is when you're discussing sensitive topics like this. As I look back on our journey together as a family, I realize that we've all been hurt in one way or another. We've made mistakes, said things we wish we could take back, and struggled to find common ground. But it's how we respond to those wounds that truly matters. Do we let them tear us apart, or do we use them as opportunities to grow stronger together? For me, this journey has taught me the importance of speaking up for what I believe in, even when it's hard. As a mother, there are no easy answers, only tough choices and difficult conversations. But if we can learn to communicate openly, love unconditionally, and stand by our values, then maybe, just maybe, we'll emerge from this brokenness stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. I think about the picture Emma showed me that day, the one with Ryan's family smiling alongside her. It was a stark reminder of how far we'd come since those early days when they disowned Ryan. I remember feeling torn between my love for Emma and my disappointment in Ryan's choices, but now it's clear. This isn't about blame or fault, it's about the kind of family we want to be. As I reflect on our struggles, I'm reminded that every family has its own set of challenges. Ours may not be unique, but our response to them certainly is. We can choose to let our differences tear us apart or use them as opportunities for growth. And as a mother, I know which path I want to take. The thought of navigating this new landscape with Emma still feels daunting, but I'm determined to make it work. I want her to understand why I acted the way I did, and I hope she'll eventually see things from my perspective. Not just because I'm right, but because I love her unconditionally and want what's best for her. As I look ahead, I know that there will be more tough conversations, more difficult choices, but if we can learn to communicate openly, to listen without judgment, and to stand by our values, then maybe, just maybe, we'll find a way out of this brokenness, stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. It's not going to be easy, but I'm willing to take that journey with Emma. We'll stumble along the way, make mistakes, and hurt each other sometimes, but if we can learn to forgive ourselves and each other, then maybe, just maybe, we'll find a way out of this darkness into a brighter future. End of section. Note: this section is approximately 960 words long and focuses on the aftermath, reflection, lessons, and final emotional landing of the story. The narration style is conversational and emotional, with a natural pacing that allows the listener to breathe in between scenes. Chapter 2: Confronting the Unspoken. It's been 3 weeks since our argument, and I can feel the tension in my household still simmering beneath the surface. Emma has been distant, barely speaking to me unless it's absolutely necessary. Ryan, on the other hand, seems more relaxed, like he's finally found some peace after all this drama. I know I need to talk to Emma again, but I'm hesitant to bring up the subject of Ryan's family. She's still hurting from our previous conversation, and I don't want to push her further away. But I also can't just pretend everything is fine when it's not. One evening, as we're having dinner together, Emma brings up the topic herself. "Mom, can we talk about what happened with Ryan's family?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. My heart skips a beat as I consider how to respond. Do I dive straight into the reasons why I was upset, or do I try to find some common ground? "Of course, sweetie," I say gently. "What's on your mind?" Emma takes a deep breath before launching into her thoughts. "I know you were angry about Ryan's family seeing the kids, but I think it's good for them to have a relationship with my side of the family too." My instincts scream at me to correct her, to tell her that her grandparents' behavior towards Ryan was unacceptable. But something about Emma's words, or maybe it's the desperation in her voice, makes me pause. "Emma, honey, I understand where you're coming from," I begin carefully. "But what about how they treated Ryan? Don't you think we should be protecting him from people who hurt his feelings and made him feel unwelcome?" For a moment, Emma looks taken aback by my words. Then her expression softens, and she leans forward, elbows on the table. "You're right, Mom," she says quietly. "I know how much they hurt Ryan, and I've been thinking, maybe we can find a way to make this work for everyone." My heart skips another beat as I listen to Emma's words. Is this a sign of progress? Or am I just reading too much into it? Over the next few days, I try to be more open-minded about Emma's decisions regarding Ryan's family. We have more conversations, some harder than others, but slowly, we start to find common ground. It's not that we agree on everything, far from it, but we start to understand each other better, to see things from different perspectives. One evening, as I'm getting ready for bed, Emma comes into my room and snuggles up beside me on the couch. "Thanks, Mom," she says softly. "I know you're trying to help me see what's best for everyone." My heart melts at her words, and I wrap an arm around her shoulders. "That's all I want, sweetie, for us to be happy together." In that moment, as we sit there in silence, I feel a weight lift off my shoulders. Maybe, just maybe, We'll make it through this after all. But little do I know, the real challenge is yet to come. The new custody agreement. As we're navigating our newfound understanding of each other's perspectives, Ryan reaches out to us with some unexpected news. He wants to renegotiate their custody agreement. The reason? He feels that Emma's actions, taking their child to visit his family without informing him first, have compromised the original 50-50 arrangement. Emma and I exchange worried glances when we hear this. We know Ryan's been feeling more assertive about his needs as a single father, but we also don't want to see our relationship with him suffer further over this issue. We agree that Emma should talk to Ryan directly, try to clear the air before things escalate any further. It's a tense conversation, but eventually they come to some sort of agreement. They'll revisit their custody arrangement, making sure it reflects both parents' needs and values. But here's the thing. In the midst of all this drama, I'm starting to feel like an outsider, caught between my love for Emma and my desire to protect her child. It's a complicated web, but one thing is certain. We need to find a way out of this together, or risk losing each other completely. As the days go by, we face more challenges, financial disputes, disagreements over parenting styles. But slowly, we're learning to communicate more openly, to listen without judgment. It's not always easy, but maybe, just maybe, that's where our journey begins, in the messy, imperfect spaces between hurt and healing. And as for Emma, she's still figuring out who she is outside of her relationships with Ryan and me. But with each passing day, I see glimmers of self-awareness, a growing sense of confidence that's both beautiful and terrifying to witness. It's like watching our entire family grow up before my eyes. Or maybe it's just the realization dawning on me. We're not the same people we used to be. We've been broken apart by hurt and betrayal, but in the process, we might just find a way to become something more resilient, more loving, more together than ever before. But for now, the road ahead is still uncertain, still fraught with obstacles. All I can do is hold on tight, to Emma's hand, to Ryan's heart, and to our fragile, beautiful family dynamic as we navigate this uncharted territory, praying that somehow, someway, we'll find a way out of the darkness into a brighter future. And so our story continues, full of broken trust, hurt feelings, and second chances. But amidst all the chaos, I'm learning one thing. Love isn't always easy. It's messy, imperfect, and sometimes downright painful. Yet in its own strange way, that's where the healing begins. Chapter 3. Fractured Trust. The days turn into weeks as we try to navigate the new custody agreement. Emma and Ryan are working together, trying to find a balance between their needs. I'm relieved to see them communicating more openly, but I know it's not going to be easy. One evening, as we're having dinner together, the conversation turns to the topic of trust. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Emma says, her voice hesitant. "Why did you feel so strongly about Ryan's family seeing the kids? You seemed really upset." I take a deep breath before responding. "Honey, it's because I know how hurtful their behavior was towards Ryan. They disowned him, remember? It's not right to expose your child to people who don't accept them for who they are." Emma nods thoughtfully. "I see what you mean, but at the same time, I feel like we're being a bit too hard on them. They're still family after all." Ryan chimes in, his voice calm and measured. "I understand where both of you are coming from, but for me, it's not just about acceptance. It's about creating a safe environment for our child to grow up in. If that means avoiding certain people or situations, then so be it." Emma looks at Ryan, a hint of concern on her face. "But what if they change their minds? What if they start being more accepting?" Ryan shrugs. "Then, we'll reevaluate the situation and make changes accordingly. But for now, I think it's best to stick with what we have in place." I listen to their conversation, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me wants to see them resolve their differences and find common ground. Another part of me worries that they're being too cautious, not giving Ryan's family enough chances. As the evening wears on, I realize that our conversations are becoming more nuanced. We're no longer just arguing about custody or parenting styles. We're exploring the complexities of love, acceptance, and trust. It's a fragile balance, one that requires patience, empathy, and understanding. But as I watch Emma and Ryan work through their differences, I know that this is where our journey begins. In the messy, imperfect spaces between hurt and healing. A conversation with myself. As I reflect on our conversations, I realize that I've been holding on to some deep-seated fears. Fears about losing Emma, about not being able to protect her from harm. Fears about Ryan's family being a bad influence on my granddaughter. But what if those fears are unfounded? What if we're actually creating more problems by being so rigid in our thinking? I think back to the times when I was younger, when I struggled with my own relationships and trust issues. How did I resolve them? Was it through confrontation or compromise? Through love or anger? As I ponder these questions, I realize that I've been projecting my own fears onto Emma and Ryan. I've been trying to control the narrative, to dictate how they should navigate their relationship. But what if I let go of those fears? What if I trusted them to find their own way, to make their own decisions? The thought is both exhilarating and terrifying. It's a risk, one that requires faith in their abilities and judgment. But as I look around the room at Emma and Ryan, I know that this is what they need. Not my control or interference, but my love and support. New developments. The next few weeks are filled with more twists and turns. We're still navigating the new custody agreement, but we're also dealing with some unexpected financial news. It seems that Emma's grandfather has left her a significant inheritance, one that will be divided among his grandchildren. But here's the catch. Ryan's family is contesting the will, claiming that there was some kind of manipulation involved. They're accusing me and Emma's grandmother of using our influence to sway the decision in their favor. I'm stunned by this revelation. I had no idea that Ryan's family would take it this far, or that they would resort to such underhanded tactics. As we try to navigate this new development, I realize that trust is at an all-time low. Emma and Ryan are already struggling with the custody agreement. Now we have to deal with the added stress of a disputed inheritance. But amidst all the chaos, I see glimmers of hope. I see Emma and Ryan working together more seamlessly than ever before, finding ways to communicate and compromise in the face of adversity. And as for me, I'm learning to let go of my fears, to trust that they'll find their own way. It's a difficult process, one that requires patience and faith in our relationships. But as I look at Emma and Ryan, I know that this is what we need. Not just a resolution to our problems, but a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other. As the news about the disputed inheritance sinks in, Emma's grandmother calls me to discuss the situation. "Honey, I'm shocked," she says, her voice laced with concern. "I had no idea Ryan's family would contest the will like this." We spend the next hour discussing the details, trying to understand what might have led them to take such a drastic step. When Emma finds out about the dispute, she's devastated. She calls me, tears streaming down her face as she shares her fears and doubts. "Mom, what if they win? What if we lose everything?" I try to reassure her, but it's clear that this has hit her hard. As we talk through our options, Ryan reaches out to offer his support. "Hey, Emma, I'm here for you," he says, his voice calm and reassuring. "We'll figure this out together." His words of encouragement help ease some of the tension, but it's clear that we're all feeling a bit raw. As the days go by, the situation becomes more complicated. Ryan's family is claiming that Emma's grandfather manipulated the will in our favor, using his influence to sway the decision. We know this isn't true. Emma's grandfather was a fair man who loved all of his grandchildren equally, but it's clear that we need to prove it. We spend hours poring over old documents, trying to find any evidence that might support our case. Emma and Ryan work together, their collaboration and communication more seamless than ever before. I'm proud of them for staying calm under pressure, for working through the challenges with empathy and understanding. But as we dig deeper into the dispute, I start to feel a growing sense of unease. What if Ryan's family is right? What if there was some kind of manipulation involved? The thought sends a shiver down my spine, making me question everything we've been doing. One evening, as we're having dinner together, Emma brings up the topic of trust again. "Mom, can I ask you something?" she says, her voice hesitant. "How can we be sure that Grandpa didn't manipulate things? That it wasn't just a way for him to favor us over Ryan's family?" I take a deep breath before responding, trying to find the right words. "Honey, I don't think he would do something like that. But even if there was some kind of manipulation involved, which I highly doubt, it doesn't change the fact that we're still family. We should be supporting each other, not fighting over an inheritance." Emma nods thoughtfully, her eyes locked on mine. "I see what you mean. But at the same time, I feel like we're being a bit too trusting. What if this is all just a ruse to get us to let our guard down?" Ryan chimes in, his voice calm and measured. "I think Emma's right, Mom. We need to be careful about who we trust. But at the same time, I don't want to assume that Ryan's family is being malicious. Maybe they really believe this." As the conversation continues, I realize that our relationships are becoming more complex than ever before. We're not just navigating a disputed inheritance, we're also grappling with deeper issues of trust and loyalty. In the midst of all this chaos, I find myself questioning everything. Am I doing what's best for Emma? Or am I just trying to protect her from harm? Is Ryan's family really as malicious as they seem? Or are they just fighting for what they believe is right? As the days turn into weeks, the dispute rages on. We're still waiting for a decision from the court, still navigating the complexities of our relationships. But amidst all the uncertainty, I see glimmers of hope. Emma and Ryan are working together more seamlessly than ever before, their communication and collaboration more open and honest. And as for me, I'm learning to let go of my fears, to trust that we'll find a way through this difficult time. It's not going to be easy, but with love, support, and a willingness to communicate, I know we can overcome anything.